He's with us. They're like, you're not fighting each other.
Is America headed for another civil war? The George Floyd riots that burned cities throughout the nation, along with the rise of Patriot militias surging to record numbers, has a number of pundits saying just that. The United States is indeed on the precipice of civil war. A recent poll found that a significant number of both Republicans and Democrats believe that violence is a justifiable response to their political opponents, and another poll found that a majority of Republicans, 53%, believe that our nation is indeed headed toward another civil war. But all this, of course, raises the question, what would, God forbid, such a civil war look like? And even more so, who would win? Gang, if you're like me and you've been wanting to get your concealed carry permit but have found the barriers and requirements just way too burdensome to deal with, well, guess what? There's now an amazing solution to that. Countrywide Concealed is probably the quickest way for you to get your permit and carry legally in a majority of states in the country. That's right. You won't just be able to carry in your state, but in 84% of the whole of the nation. And it's as quick and as easy as watching a video and taking a quiz. And thanks to Countrywide Concealed, your family is that much safer no matter where you go. Getting a concealed carry license has simply never been easier. Click on that link below and join the millions of patriots who've already taken back their rights and started carrying legally with Countrywide Concealed today. Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene turned heads across the country some months back when she openly called for a national divorce between red states and blue states. According to a recent survey conducted by the Center of Politics at the University of Virginia, a majority of Trump voters, as well as a significant minority of Biden voters, were both in favor of their state's secession from the United States. All told, 52% of surveyed Trump voters and 41% of Biden voters supported seceding from one another in some way, shape, or form. A number of pundits recognize that there is a growing divide between red states and blue states over national identity and culture. When you have two populations so radically divided as we are here in the United States, it does become a legitimate question. Are we basically two different countries within a single nation? Have we in many respects already separated from one another, and now we just need to close the deal, as it were? If we think about our nation as basically entailing two different countries, red and blue, we get a glimpse of a rather stark reality. As you can see, the red country, the conservative country, is overwhelming in terms of landmass. According to a study by the Brookings Institute back in 2008, Democrat voting districts encompass 39% of U.S. land area as compared with 61% expanse of Republican districts. By 2018, that number changed dramatically. Democrat voting districts imploded to just 20% of the map. Republicans now dominate 80% of the nation's land area. The Democrats have become an almost entirely urban metropolitan party. Note that this regional disparity completely does away with the notion of red states versus blue states. There's actually no such thing. So, for example, in the state of Oregon, which is considered one of the most reliably blue states in the nation, 29 of their 36 counties are solid red. They vote for the Republican candidate by margins of over 40 points. Were a civil war to actually break out, blue states in effect would disappear. There would only be blue regions, sporadic ones, all surrounded by a massive sea of red regions. Obviously, this would potentially be very significant were a civil war to break out. Not only could red regions blockade effectively blue regions, cutting off their supply lines, but red regions have all the natural resources. In other words, red regions have all the commodities they need for the food and fuel necessary for social stability. Blue regions, on the other hand, being primarily urban and cosmopolitan, are wholly dependent on supply chains for virtually all of their daily resources. This red region's commodities advantage may indeed be decisive were hostilities to break out between red and blue regions. Moreover, 66% of Republicans report that they live in a household with at least one firearm, as compared to just 31% of Democrats. In other words, red regions are armed to the teeth, whereas blue regions simply aren't. It's no surprise then that over 60% of our nation's counties, all red regions, have been officially designated as Second Amendment sanctuaries. And finally, red regions have witnessed a stunning growth in the number of Patriot militias. One report found that the number of Patriot militias has actually doubled in just the last 10 years. Organizations such as the Boogaloo Boys and Oath Keepers and Three Percenters, Proud Boys, they're just the tip of the iceberg of what's estimated to be now over 500 active Patriot militias throughout the nation. You put all of this together, and we're actually seeing a scenario that played out once before in history. Dr. David Kilcullen, an expert in counterinsurgency, has recently argued that were a civil war to break out in the United States, it would be something akin to the civil wars that ravaged the nation of Colombia from 1948 to 1958. Interestingly, that civil war began with racial riots in their cities over perceived social inequalities. And they were responded to by citizen militias in the rural parts of Colombia. The police sided with the more conservative rural militias. And if the scenario were to play out in the United States, that would mean that the suburbs of our nation would actually become the battlefield, with both urban and ex-urban forces competing over control over the suburbs. So what Kilcullen argued is that what we would then be seeing is armed gangs basically taking over our cities, like we saw with BLM or Antifa-Stan in Portland and Seattle, while citizen militias would be taking over our exurbs, and the two would be fighting for control over our suburbs as a buffer zone. That's akin to what happened in Colombia. And were such a scenario to play out here, it's rather obvious that red regions have massive advantages, regional as well as tactical, over blue regions. So while we, of course, all pray that things never come to this, were a civil war to break out, my money is on red. Hey, gang, I know what it's like to feel alone out there in these turbulent times, but I broke free. If you too have been looking for a community with like-minded patriots who are serious about resisting globalism, building a parallel economy, and having intelligent and deep fellowship on a regular basis, then you've come to the right place. In my Courageous Patriot Insiders community, we're building a close-knit movement of, by, and for patriots who are breaking free from the outrage and despair cycles of the mainstream media and taking on the fight against globalism. Every week, I deep dive into the content I can't share on big tech and give you the cliff notes on the truth of how patriots just like you are building up their communities, starting patriot businesses, and fighting the woke in both public and private. All with a few history and political lessons from yours truly, of course. If you want to stop feeling alone as a patriot and stand together with this fast-growing community, be sure to click on the link in the description below. Don't wait. Join me and my Patriot Coalition today, and let's get fighting.